15, and time for the Murray City Municipal Council Committee of the Whole for March 2nd, 2021. Let's see, I have this notice to read. And it says, public notice is hereby given that this meeting will occur electronically without an anchor location in accordance with Utah Code 52-4-2074 due to infectious disease COVID-19 novel coronavirus. I, as the council chair, have determined that conducting a meeting with an anchor location presents substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location because physical distancing measures may be difficult to maintain in the Murray City Council chambers. So welcome, everybody. Let's see, is Rosalba here? She's on? Okay, great. Then I am. Okay, good. All council members are present. We also have GL Critchfield, our attorney, and Mayor Camp, and Jennifer and Doug. So anyway, welcome, and we'll get started. First of all, we have approval of minutes, and that's for the Committee of the Whole, February 2nd, 2021. Are there any additions or changes from the council? Hearing none, I will take a motion.
I move we accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Brooke, will you call the roll?
Yeah. Mr. Hills.
Aye.
Ms. Martinez.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I was trying to mute myself. Aye.
And Ms. Turner.
Aye. All right, and we have two discussion items. The first one is the Power Department quarterly update, and Blaine Hackey will be presenting. Welcome, Blaine. And you have 45 minutes. We gave you lots of time, so go ahead.
Thanks for the welcome. That could be a little bit to your demise to give me that much time. We do have a lot to talk about. It seems like it's been quite a while since I've actually talked to the council. I know I came back in October, September, and we talked about nuclear, and most recently we talked about the EV charger rate. But it's been months since I've been able to talk about employee issues and how our power department's doing. So I welcome the opportunity. If I don't take the full 45 minutes, then hopefully you'll fill it in somehow. I thought initially, let me go over maybe my agenda for the day. I hope you can see that, but I just thought we'd catch up on a few things. I want to talk about the nuclear project that we voted down in October. I want to talk about the work we have going at our hydro and some of the work we've been doing on our system, and then get a little more personal and talk about some of our employees and some of the COVID situation we've had, some movement in some of our employment opportunities. I have a graph here. I only have 5 graphs. This is one of the 5 slides. And I have one slide that talks about outages. I thought it'd be interesting for the council to see what is our mix of outages, what causes our outages, and how is our response time and those types of things. I have 2 slides on our resources, one of which you've seen already. But I wanted to detail or maybe review some of the resources that we have contracted, what we're looking at for the future, some of the things we have in the works with the UAMPS group, and also on the side, we've done a few things as well. I also have my last slide that talks about a rate comparison. I had Matt Youngs from my staff actually compare Murray's residential rate to 7 other cities, and as well as the Rocky Mountain Power residential rate. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see that our our rate is maybe, well, humbly speaking, probably the lowest in the state. But we'll talk about that. And then the last item, I want to talk a little bit about what happened 2 weeks ago in the Texas situation, where they had such a tough issue with their resources and their temperature problems and that type of thing. I wanted to maybe explain a little bit why it'd be really hard for that to duplicate here in Murray, but it could happen. But I'll talk about that. So, with that, I thought I'd talk about the nuclear project first. Remember, in October, I came back to the council, and as a group, we voted against further participation in the nuclear project with the UAMPS group. I haven't hardly heard anything since then. Because we're not in the project, we haven't been invited in the UAMPS project meetings. It's a lot of it's under executive session. This I do know that the modules that they initially had thought about, or does that help a little bit on the sizing? Okay, I saw somebody playing with my screen back and forth. The nuclear module, remember there's 12 of them that we talked about? Well, they were 60 megawatts, and now they've upped to 77 megawatt capabilities, which is an upgrade, of course. It's a kind of a rule changer, a game changer in a little bit. So there's tweaking that's going on behind the scenes with this nuclear project. I still feel very comfortable in what we did as far as backing out of that project. There's going to be opportunities later to maybe come on at a little higher price, but I feel very comfortable in what we did with that. Now, remember, our study costs were, I estimated them to be $330,000. They actually came in at $271,000. That was the cost for us to study this for a couple of years. And that was based on the megawatt interest we had in the project. Poor Logan got hit with twice that, and some of these other cities that were into it heavier than we are. The $271,000 is now billed to us, and we will pay that in the next month's power bill. Our power bill for UAMPS is around $1 million a month. So we have sufficient money to cover that $271,000. I just wanted the council and mayor to know that that bill will be paid. We'll be completely, wash our hands of that project for $60,000 less than I thought. So that's not too bad. But we do have money sufficient because some of our cost lists last fall for our power purchases were less than we thought. And so we were able to bank a little bit of money, and the $271,000 was covered easily. I'll pause every now and then for some questions, but if I don't hear within 5 seconds, I'll keep going. How's that?
So, Blaine, we don't have to worry about experiencing what Texas experienced?
That's my last item, Diane. Hold on for 34 more minutes. Unless we could talk about it now.
No, we can wait. We can wait. It's just something I've been really concerned about, and I know that our citizens have too. So we'll wait until the end. Anybody have any questions for Blaine at this point? Rosalba, do you have any questions for Blaine?
Yeah, I'm just listening to his presentation. So I'm like, I have questions. I'm sure I'll have plenty of questions.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we're going to cover a lot tonight. Let me maybe just keep talking and then break in as you need to. Next, I want to talk about our hydro. We have a hydro that's located outside of Little Cottonwood Canyon. We use the water coming out of Little Cottonwood. We catch it up in the canyon, and it goes on a 2.5 mile pipe underground to where our hydro is located down by the Salt Lake Water Metro Plant. It's kind of by Lakai. If you've ever eaten a Lakai, it's kind of in that area. It's a 35-year-old hydro. We have had some studies done on the penstock, which is the pipeline, 48-inch pipeline, and we're worried about it failing because of 35 years of use. And so at the end of the water year last fall, in October, we dewatered the pipe, as we always do during the wintertime, and we hired a firm to come in and sandblast and recoat the inside of that pipe. And they started that in the first part of October, and they just finished up the entire 2.5 mile length of it mid-February, which was actually 45 days before they were contracted to finish up. It was a huge project. The contractor actually hired another crew. He had 2 crews sandblasting the inside of this metal penstock or pipeline, and then another crew behind the other 2 crews that would just coat this or spray coat the inside of this pipe, this metal pipe, with this durable, hard rubber, hard type coating.
Hey, Blaine, I want to stop you. That's what my dad does.
Serious?
Yeah, that's what he does for a living.
Was he involved in our project by chance?
He hasn't said anything. Usually he knows a few guys that are, but he hasn't said anything.
Oh, that's amazing.
He's familiar with that plant. I think he did in the past.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, that's what he does professionally.
It's a huge project, and they had to pull a couple of crews onto it to make it work. But it was a cold winter, and to go down that pipeline, I just can't imagine. A tough job. But they were done on time. We'll be ready to rewater the penstock April 1st when the water comes down from the canyon. The last official word we had was that there was enough snowfall, or the snowpack up in Little Cottonwood Canyon was around 71%. And that was before the last snowstorms. I had an employee come in to say it was close to 90% now. He talked to somebody up in the canyon. So I don't know if we caught up that fast, but we're still not 100% normal. But come April 1st, we're going to try to catch every drop of water that comes out of the canyon. And the penstock's ready. We've got a little bit of turbine bearing project we're doing right now. It's a $60,000 job to re-babbitt the bearings. Babbitt is a metallic covering that they put on these moving parts that I guess protect the heavier metal from wearing down. They wear the babbitt out instead of wearing the metal down. So we've got that project, but our hydro's ready to go. We just need a couple more snowstorms maybe, and we'll make a go of it. Okay, I want to jump to some employees. Talk a little bit about employees. We had 3, since we last talked to council, I've had 3 employees retire. I had 2 planners, Kelly Peterson, Tom Harvey, retire on January 31st. And I also had a substation generation technician, Dan Terrell, retire the same day. So we lost 3 employees. Kelly had 44 years. Tom had 31 years. And Dan Terrell had 28 years. So we lost a lot of experience in one day. And we're kind of reeling a little bit in one division because 75 years of experience walking out the door in that one division was a lot. But we're making ends meet. We have we've actually hired a fellow by the name of Isaac Magana from Davis County area. He's going to be a sub-tech. His expertise is relay and alarm monitoring. And we've also done some in-house promotion to help us with the other division. So I might have one more retirement coming here in the next little while. We'll see. But we've got some, I can say old employees because I'm one of them, but we've had some employees over 30 years in the state retirement system. And but when you're in your mid-50s and you've still got years in front of you, I don't know why they retire, but we'll see what happens. Next is COVID. We've had 3 COVID cases in the past year. 3 employees have had COVID. We've had numerous employees that have had to take some quarantine because of families that were affected by the quarantine. Right now, we have nobody out with COVID watch. They've all recovered, and the family members have recovered without any problems. But I like to think that maybe some of our proactive examples have helped that out. We have a crew come out after employees leave every night. They go and they wash and disinfect all the surfaces of the entire 2 buildings we have. We have a mask policy on all the time, even if we're in the crew trucks. We have given the opportunity for some of our crews, if they feel uneasy, to actually drive a separate truck out on site. A little side story on that is I had a citizen call and say, there's 4 white trucks in front of my house fixing a streetlight. Isn't that overkill? And I said, yeah, it's overkill. But we're giving them the opportunity to drive the truck out, and they feel safer, and I think it's better in the long run. We bought some medical grade air purifiers. We've closed down our ice machine, which was not popular. We installed no-touch faucets and dispensers and those types of things. So I think hopefully we've dodged the COVID bullet and we won't have any more issues, but we're playing it safe up to the end. I want to share a screen. I want to share my next, let's see if I can do that. We'll go there, and we'll go there. I want to talk about some of the outages we've had. I've taken the outages from the last 12 months. We had a total of 206 outages, and 36 of those were not my fault, you might say, not our fault. There was people putting trees in the power wires. It's people with DUI accidents running into poles. We have Mylar balloon issues sometimes when people let the balloons up and get crossed in the phases of our. So 36 of those were customer related. 40 of those 206 outages are what I call system upgrades. We will find a pole in the backyard. We will say, we need to kill the power to 6 homes to fix that pole. And so we will circulate the notice in the neighborhoods. And we will take what we call a system outage or a spot outage. We still count it as an outage, even though it wasn't an emergency outage, but we still put that on our thing. We had 40 of those. And that's a good sign, I think, because we are in the backyards upgrading and making sure our poles are safe and wires are safe. So of the 130 remaining outages, this is what I thought would be interesting for you. We have 10% of those, or about 13 of them, were caused by tree branches. Now, if you think of it, that's one tree outage a month. You consider all the trees in Murray City. We have 8 tree arborists that their full-time job is to clear the wires, clear the branches from the wires from the branches, I guess. But I think that's an amazing number to only have one outage a month for our tree-caused outages. You can see some of the other causes. 52% are caused by raccoons, squirrels, lightning, insulators that might have froze, those types of things. And then we have just equipment failures. Sometimes our transformers just fail, and there's nothing we can do about that. But I thought that was kind of an interesting outage. We keep tabs of that. Our average response time is 22 minutes on an outage. That's pretty good. You know, if outages happen while we're at work, we can respond pretty fast. If outages happen on a weekend, of course, our response time is more than 22 minutes. But on the average, we are on site when somebody calls in with an outage in 22 minutes. And if we take all of the hours in a year and all of the minutes that were blacked out for an outage, our reliability is, and Brett can laugh at this because I've explained it, is 99.999% on. And not many nines we can go, but we can go at least 4. So if you're an average Murray citizen, your power's on 99.998% of the time. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But as I said before, you're only as good as your next outage. And Texas just found out a couple weeks ago that you get hit with a cold spell and it might have some issues.
You know, Blaine, I just want to take a second. Every time I see a power outage any place, I see it on TV because my power's on, and I just have to take my hat off to you and your crews for that, and Murray does as well, because I don't think there's a better power system in the country.
I really appreciate that. I'll pass it on to the guys who are out there in the 20-degree temperatures on top of the poles.
And as I was mumbling under my breath, unless you're above 9th East.
Yeah.
Come on down. The water's warm, Diane. Come on down.
Probably not going to happen.
We pride ourselves. We have guys that take pride in that. We've got some 20-year veterans that know the system. They know exactly where to go when the outage call comes. They're not looking at maps and driving around trying to find out where things are fed from. They know the system, and that's good to know.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks for that compliment. I thought we'd talk a little bit about our resources. You've seen this graph before when I gave the council orientation, Rosalba and Kat, especially you've seen this before.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just quickly touch on the resources because the next graph that I show will show you how we cover our loads on every hour of the day. The CRSP is the federal hydro. We have a contract out another 40 years on that. The WRP is another supplemental water hydro resource that we receive from the federal government. We buy that on a spot basis. The coal-fired plant in Hunter out by Price, Utah is what I've called our workhorse. That is our biggest producer of power for Murray. We transmit it here on Rocky Mountain Power transmission lines. It comes into the Bouillon substation, and then we distribute it to the rest of the city. That, like all coal-fired plants, that project is coming under fire by legislative action from the environmentalists. With the change of administration to Biden, it's going to tighten up a little bit more. Trump was more coal-friendly, and some of the resources and some of the lawsuits that were involved in the pipeline during those 4 years were stalled. And we expect that to pick up here with Biden and his administration. We still expect 15 to 20 years out of the Hunter power plant, which is good news. The debt's paid off on that. San Juan power plant is a small one for us. Come this time next year, that plant will be defunct. It will be ready for demolish. They're just going to walk away from that plant. The people that had owned it, the Californians, could no longer take that coal-fired plant electricity, so they're walking away from it. The Conway Hydro I just talked about. The landfill methane plants, Transjordan methane plant, we have a contract for another 3 years on that, and then we will re-up that. In the Salt Lake County landfill, we have another 6 years left on that contract. That's a really good renewable resource. It burns the methane from the rotting garbage that is an ozone-depleting gas. So we're killing the methane gas, you might say, helping the ozone out, as well as getting a resource that's on 90% of the time. It's a great resource. Our natural gas turbines are right here, 300 yards to my south. We use those during the peak months of the summer and on basis as we need them. The power exchange is what we do online every minute of the day. Our central control people are looking at our loads versus what's out there on the market to sell or buy, and they will click with a mouse and they will buy and sell power. It's a fascinating experience to be up there and watch them do that. Usually by the 15 minutes to the hour, every hour of the day, they're watching our loads, fine-tuning it, and then they're buying power on the market. And when we can get rid of these masks, maybe you can come in, we can show you how we buy and sell power. It'd be an awesome experience. The IPA coal plant is in the process of being refueled, and it will go from coal-fired to natural gas. And we're also going to put a hydrogen mix onto that. It's a Utah plant, but it's kind of California operated. They're the ones that take all the power. They're the ones that call the shots on that, but we have access to that if we want to. The most recent one, and you were involved in the vote, when was it, a year ago? Maybe a year and a half ago, is the large-scale solar plant down in the Four Corners area. Work is ongoing on that. We've seen some of the structure that's being built, installed in that red rock area. That'll be operational next year, 2022, and spring of 2022. We have a contract for 25 years at about $29 a megawatt hour on the average. And so we're looking forward to bringing that into our mix. It's a renewable mix. I thought that'd just be a quick review for all of you. If you have any questions on those resources, maybe is the time to ask.
Any questions?
No, I just want to let you know it's good that we're having this conversation now because I was getting off questions from constituents. So it's about where our power is coming from. So it's good to have that conversation and really just know where it's coming from exactly and how much we are invested in each area. So I appreciate that. And it probably was because of Texas.
Maybe so. Yeah. And we will talk, this slide I'm showing right now is a great slide because our portfolio is diverse. We have big hydro, small hydro, coal plants in three parts of the country. We have landfill methane, natural gas. A lot of cities, a lot of communities don't have that resource mix. So
I was going to say, on average, how many resources do other cities have?
well, I know in the case of the newer member of UAMPS, remember the UAMPS group is the group of 40 cities from Utah. We've been a long member of UAMPS, but there's been a couple other cities like Brigham City, Price, Lehigh to some extent, are fairly new to the UAMPS group, and they haven't lined up resources through the past 3 or 4 decades like Murray has. We are living off the laurels of decisions that were made back in the 60s and the 70s by Murray City Council people to get into the CRSP, to buy into Hunter, to buy into IPA. And most recently, around the turn of the century, 2000-ish, we got into the 2 methane plants. I would say, Rosalba, the average Utah city probably has 3 or 4 options. We opted to put natural gas turbines in at a huge expense. And only lately are some of the other cities coming around to that, because with that natural gas turbine brings an independence. Without any type of generation in your city boundaries, you're bound to what the grid gives you. And if Rocky Mountain Power has a problem up in Ben Lomond or down in 90th South, there's nothing you can do until they bring power back into your system. And so we do have some independence. So, it's hard to say. I'd say we have twice as many options, maybe, as the average city.
Okay. Thank you. That's good to know.
Now, Blaine, after all these years, I finally realized where these acronyms come from. You've taken them from radio stations. CRSP was KRSP, WRP was WKRP in Cincinnati. I'm not kidding you. KPAX, KCPX, you have taken all these from radio stations.
We don't have a K and AK, though.
No, you are old.
Oh, no. But my dad used to listen to Club Radio 57 on the AM dial. Yeah.
Jeez, how do you remember that? That's crazy.
Oh, no, it's crazy. Let me go to the next slide. This will show you a little bit of a mix on how we cover things. See, I'm looking at the clock to see how much time we've got. On the x-axis is the hours of the day. This is a typical summer day. On the y-axis is the amount of load we have. Each of the colors on the graph, you can follow an hour. And as you move up, you can see blue, orange, gray, yellow, light blue, green, blue. And below, you can see the legend. The CRSP is the dark blue. This is how we schedule it. We will tell the federal people that we want X amount of megawatts an hour ending 15, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's move over to hour 17. That's our peak hour. 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You can see we've maxed out as much as we could contractually with the blue crisp resource. Next, we have our Hunter resource. It's 20 megawatts. You can see it's about the same quantity all hours of the day. When you have a coal-fired plant going, you keep it going. You don't like to go up and down hour to hour on a coal plant because it's just too hard on the engines and on the system. The small bit of gray is the San Juan coal-fired plant that we will lose next year, but it's a small portion of our percentage. LF is landfill. So the yellow above the gray is what our landfill brings into a resource. And you can see that it's about the same quantity every hour of the day. We don't dispatch it up and down like we do some resources. The blue is the hydro. When the water is running, that blue helps us out a lot. During the wintertime, we don't get any hydro. And this graph would look a little bit different in wintertime, but the blue is only during the summer. The green is the turbines. In this particular day, on hour 17, we ran our turbines for, it's about 25 or 30 megawatts, it looks like. Quite a bit, about 30% of our load during that hour. But you notice on hour 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's no green there because our turbines weren't on. We didn't need that to cover our load. We only used the turbines during the afternoon hours when market price gets expensive, and we can run our turbines to replace what would be more expensive. So we'll turn that up and down during the day. And the dark blue is contracted. That's month ahead deals that we make with other UAMPS members. It might be Logan, it might be Blanding, it might be Parowan. We might buy power from Ephraim. And that dark blue is power we would buy on the market from other people. And the top part is a kind of a rusty color, it's gray or brownish, is what we call the pool. That's the market. That's what Texas was paying $1,000 for last week, 2 weeks ago. Usually that market for us in the summertime is only a couple $100, and it pays for us to run the market and buy the market rather than go out and buy a big chunk that we have to pay for around the clock. So I kind of hope this helps you understand that, during 4 or 5 in the morning, far left of the graph, you really don't have a lot of resource problems. But man, when it gets in the afternoon of the summertime, it gets to be pretty hairy around here as we're scrambling for power. For this coming summer, we've got resources lined up with purchases through the UAMPS group. We bought some natural gas ahead of time at a set price, which kind of helps us project on what that price is going to be. I think we'll be okay unless we get into 110 degrees days in the summertime. But we take that for. We have to gamble a little bit, you might say, without going out and buying too much, because then you get yourself into some contracts that are just not too great. All right, I'm going to stop my screen share for a second. I think I can. I hope I can. Okay. I'm going to talk just about a few more things. I want to talk about the rates, a rate comparison, and then we can talk about Texas. We have about 250 solar customers, installations in our city. We get about 1 or 2 a month is all of people wanting to install. And the reason being, I think, is because Murray's rates, as you'll see on this next graph, are enough less than the other cities and other areas in our county that the payback on a solar installation on someone's roof is not as appealing as some of these other more expensive places. We welcome the solar customers, but a lot of the vendors and a lot of the salespeople aren't going door to door because it's hard for them to prove to a homeowner that they're going to get 7-year payback on their $12,000 investment. In Murray, rather than 7-year payback, it might be 11-year payback or 12-year payback because our rates aren't as high to replace what the solar cost would be. And so I think it's good for the citizens. It's not so good for the solar owners. But we welcome them. I just wanted you to know we have about 250 of those still in our city that are out doing that. Let's share the last graph. Then, okay, this is a rate comparison I had Matt Youngs in my office do. We are the green. What we did is we took the average resident's electrical kilowatt hour use for the past 12 months, put it to what our rate is, and our rate is approximately 9 cents a kilowatt hour. And you can see in a year's time, the average person, like 834, average Murray resident used about 820 kilowatt hours a month and about $834 a year. And you can see where Provo stands and Lehigh and St. George, Logan, Bountiful, Springdale, Heber, and Rocky Mountain Power. You can see some are higher than us. In fact, all of these are higher than us. There are a few smaller members in UAMPS that are less than Murray's residential rate. But Logan actually went through a rate decrease in the past couple of years. They were a little bit out of whack. But kind of interesting to see that. Now, where we're usually asked is where do we compare to Rocky Mountain Power? You can see Rocky Mountain Power is about $100 a month more. And it's about, by percentage-wise, I think it's 12%, 11 or 12%, but we are less than the average residential customer of Rocky Mountain Power. Now, that's a funny number because the more kilowatt hours you use, the more you will get into that Rocky Mountain Power Tier 3 rate. So I'm kind of worried to say that we're 12% less than Rocky Mountain Power, but we can range from 9% up to 15%, depending on the month, the use. But I think, Council, this gives you an idea of, we're doing good. We're doing good. We haven't had a rate increase since 2011. Our last rate increase was actually voted on in 2008, 2009, when we were expected to see some major increases in our federal power and our coal-fired plant. And so the council, if I remember right, I asked for 9%, and they gave me 3 years worth of 3%. So they had a 3-year increase in 2009, 10, and 11, and we haven't had a rate increase since that time period. So kudos to my staff for making it work. In the meantime, we've been able to build some margins and build some money in the bank to withstand any issues like Texas. If you have any questions about this, let's do it now. Otherwise, my last agenda item is Texas, and we'll talk about that. Any questions on this?
Any questions for Blaine?
No, just good job on that.
Thanks.
No, thank you.
All right. Thanks. Let's talk about Texas. Perfect storm happened in Texas. And I put perfect in quotation marks because it wasn't perfect for them. They had so many issues that happened to them. And it all happened almost the same weekend. Just a real general bullet list. They had half of the wind turbines in Oklahoma and Texas froze up. They actually couldn't turn the pendulums for the mills because these turbines were not built for below freezing temperatures that have never been, in Texas for years and years. And they actually couldn't turn 50% of their renewable projects or propellers. Also, the machinery and the pumps at the natural gas wellheads froze up. Once again, it's because of the temperature. The machinery at the power plants, if they had gas or fuel, they froze up. The gas compressor stations froze up. It was all based on the temperature, and all these gas compressor stations that were supposed to take the gas in the pipe and push it through to the end of the trail just wasn't built for those types of temperatures. In addition to the freeze-ups, ERCOT, which is one of those acronyms that I don't think is a radio station, no, Brett, ERCOT, but we can make it one. It stands for the Energy Reliability Council of Texas. They kind of watch over the transmission grid for the entire state. And they started ordering rolling blackouts because they didn't have enough power plants to run up and going for the amount of load that people were needing. And because it was 30 degrees or below, people were using more power. The projections were totally out of whack and they needed more power. So ERCOT had these transmission blackouts or rolling blackouts that really caused issues. And I'm going to opinionate here and editorialize a little bit, but I better see who my participants are. I think we're still okay. In a way, I think Texas shot themselves in the foot. 30 or 40 years ago, the power industry went through what we call the deregulation. And I think the phone company went through it, the airlines went through it. And what they did is, and this was a nationwide cry, a nationwide at least attempt, that the attempt was to give the average citizen, like the Coxes or the Camps or the Hackeys or whoever, they could go online and buy power from whoever they wanted to. And then Murray City would have to transmit it to your house. They could go, there might be 15, 20 people that were selling electricity, and you could go and buy power, and then you would pay a second part of your power bill would be to transmit it to your house. Texas embraced that big time. They embraced the deregulation. The rest of the country kind of backed off on it and said, well, we can see some issues there that might be problematic. So part of that was Texas also cut all grid or all internet ties, not internet ties, but inter ties with other states. So they couldn't get power from New Mexico or Louisiana or Arkansas because there was no physical wires that could bring power into the state. And so they were their own little island. And for years and years, they loved it. They loved the island. They loved being, it's the Texas ego, Don't tell us what to do. We're going to do it ourselves. Well, they shot themselves in the foot because the fellow states really couldn't come to their help on this one, as far as transmitting power in. And I don't know if they've learned their lesson or not, but that was part of the issue is we couldn't move power around very easily into the state. The last thing I'll mention before I talk into what Murray's done to make it better is that these people that deregulated or that opted to deregulate were stuck with these $2,000 a month power bills. And you've probably heard that on some of the news. It's because they opted to buy their power at the wholesale market. Others that were more stable bought it at the, quote, 9 cents a kilowatt hour rate that Murray City would pay. I mean, it would be like, you, Rosalba, paying 9 cents taking the Murray route, and Cat taking the wholesale route and saying, I'm only going to pay 1 cent a kilowatt hour. And for years and years, Cat, if I could use Cat as an example, made out pretty good because the wholesale market was cheaper. And whereas Rosalba was kind of paying, well, I've still got a good deal going, but I want the reliability and stability of a rate. Well, when rates hit 2 weeks ago into the $2,000 a megawatt hour range, remember, we're paying about 40 here in Murray. These went to $2,000. So you can see why people's power bills went $3,000 in 1 month, because suddenly they were stuck at the market and they couldn't get out of it. They shot themselves in the foot as well. So before I talk about what Murray's doing maybe to stop this, is there any questions on the Texas issue? The Texas debacle, I call it.
Did the cost that went up so high, did that impact our costs on the market?
That's a great question, Diane. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. We pay, usually this time of year, we pay for natural gas about $5 a decade. We saw it hit $180 2 weeks ago. We went from $5 to $180. On top of that, Dominion Energy gave us the emergency text and phone calls that said, you are curtailed, guys. We don't have enough gas in our area now to even let you run your turbines. And we could have got around that by paying a premium, but we hit the price pretty hard. If we would have paid for $180 gas, we would have been we would have been generating for $2,000 a megawatt hour. We didn't do that. We had other ways to get around that. But yes, Diane, we saw natural gas go from $5 up to $180. And it was a worrisome. Now, on the market for electricity, well, we usually pay $50 a megawatt hour for. We saw that get as high as $800 a megawatt hour for a few hours of the day, February 17th through the 20th, I think it was when it hit the worst part. We paid $300 a megawatt hour for a couple hours on that weekend. That was that top rusty colored area on that graph I showed you. We had to pay $350, I think it was, for a couple hours. Now, did it break the bank? No. It cost us a couple $1,000 perhaps. But we saw both electricity go high as well as natural gas prices go high. Just supply and demand, market cost. Okay, here's Murray's example. Here's Murray's, good news for Murray. One thing is our diverse portfolio. We have a lot of different portfolios that we're good. And that graph shows you we have hydro, we have small hydro, we have gas, we have coal-fired, we have those types of mixes. The methane gas being so close to Murray City is a benefit to us. That's an advantage to us. The natural gas supply that we have coming into Murray, point number 2, is all winter-oriented. Dominion Energy puts warmers on these pumps, on these compressors. They get the gas from Wyoming, and what a cold place in Wyoming. I mean, if they can get it from Wyoming to Utah, it's almost like bringing it to the tropics. But the natural gas supply is warm. It's winterized already. And that comes into play when we get to our natural gas. We have a natural gas plant right here in Murray. If we can get the gas to the property line here, we can generate 33 megawatts, which is about half of our winter load. So Murray would have been better situated than a lot of these Texas cities that couldn't run their plants. Now, we needed to get natural gas here, but if we could have got natural gas here and it was an emergency, we could have generated in-house for about half of our load. And we would prioritize our feeders to different parts of the city. We'd go to maybe your neighborhood first for a couple hours, and then go to somebody else's neighborhood, and we would rotate that around. And if you want to get on that list for the good list of the neighborhood, I'm good for candy bars. You can bribe me. Another thing is UAMPS Group. We have a good cooperation agreement with UAMPS Group. We buy, sell power amongst each other. We have interties with the Rocky Mountain grid. We have more access to electricity than some of the Texas people did. Now, in-house, right here where I am right now, we have about 2 weeks worth of propane that we can run our own generators. Now, I know that's only our property, but we have propane that we can run right here that would be a good exercise. Now, we're not deregulated like Texas. We're going to pay 9 cents a kilowatt hour. Everybody's going to pay 9 cents a kilowatt hour. But my worst nightmare is an earthquake. We won't know what condition the poles are in. We won't know what condition the pipeline supply access is. There's nothing we can do to really prevent that. But my worst nightmare is an earthquake. And the bottom line, we are at the whim of the Rocky Mountain Power Transmission Grid. I mean, there's nothing we can do about something that might happen up in Ogden area or down in Draper. They have a redundant feed coming into the city, so hopefully that will always be the case. And it's been that way for 4 or 5 decades. There's nothing we can do to get around it. We are dependent on the grid. And if that goes down, we'll start up our turbines. We'll run the city for half of it, move it over to the other half, move it back and forth. We need the natural gas supply, though. We need the grid to the Rocky Mountain grid. So I think that probably is all I had to say. Diana, I don't know if that answered your questions for the Texas debacle, but I'm willing for any Q&A right now. I'm pretty well through with my presentation.
I just think we're so lucky to have our own power company and that it's so diversified and that you're in charge of it. So anyway, I think we're in good shape. Any other questions really quick or?
No, I just want to go off what I said a while ago. We have a diversified portfolio. We have men and women that work for Murray City that keep it running. We have Blaine and his crew. I think we're really lucky. We have the whole package here in Murray.
Yeah, we all know that, and we're blessed and lucky. So we are grateful for your leadership, Blaine. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Thanks,
And you
Brad.
took
Appreciate
the
that.
whole 45 minutes, so good job. I knew you could. Rosalba, do you have any comments?
No, thank you. That was a great presentation, and I really appreciate it. What interesting times to align when you were presenting along with what happened in Texas. So
Yeah. Initially, when I was given the assignment to talk for 45 minutes about how am I going to do that, and then the Texas thing happened, I thought, well, there's 10 minutes.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Council.
All right. Thanks, Blaine. Now we are at, where are we at? Oh, legislative updates with Kat Martinez and GL Critchfield.
All right. So let's talk about this session. And of course, right as it's my turn to talk, I have something in my eye. So I'm going to get a little emotional for a minute. Sorry. I swear the dog hair from the mask comes up and goes right in my eyeball. It's really a good look. It's a nice thing to share with the public. All right. So we have a huge list of bills, but I'm just going to touch more deeply on a few of them that I think are more impactful. And then sort of the big message for this week is it's the last week of the session, which means anything can happen. The rules, the procedures, all are sort of shifted around for the last week of the session. So the next time that I share with you in 2 weeks, the session will be over and we'll have a lot of like real finalized bill information for you. But anything sort of still in process is just really exciting right now. So that's our
Is tomorrow's the last day that they can introduce? Is that?
Oh, that was today or tomorrow. I don't know if you know
Wednesday.
GL, but
Is that
tomorrow. Yeah.
I think that after Wednesday, then they just kind of wind down and
Whatever's out there can go through. And if you got the handout from the fabulous intern who put together this handout is super great. I'm going to jump down to House Bill 63, which is impact fees amendments, which the ULCT supported. That bill is, let me see if I can line myself up real quick on my other sheet. No, I didn't write it for that one. Okay. It's that we can use expense for overhead when calculating impact fees. So that's how that would impact the city. The next one I want to talk to you about, and Jill, again, interrupt me if you've got anything to add. House Bill 76 is the Firearm Preemption Amendments. This one would make it so the state has sole authority to regulate firearms, make exceptions, defines consequences of violations. This is already, municipalities are already supposed to sort of go under that, but it's sort of an additional law to sort of remind municipalities that they can't make their own extra firearm regulations.
Stay in your place.
Yes, just a little reminder. It's friendly. House Bill 82 is the single family housing modifications, the ADU. The ULCT initially opposed, but then we got to the fourth substitute and they went neutral after a lot of back and forth on the issue. So where we are right now with that is it had a hearing today in the Senate Revenue and Taxation Subcommittee. It was voted 5-1 and passed out of the Senate committee just this afternoon. So we'll be moving forward. And any questions on that one? That's the big one.
Yeah. Tell me that again. Would you repeat that?
Yeah, just that it's the one. So let me find my note on here. All right, I made all of these notes and then I apparently didn't do them in order. There it is. So it allows municipalities to still cite individuals who use the ADU as a short-term rental. That was one of the negotiations on it. But it would allow ADUs in all single-family residential land use zones. And the city could require specified physical changes to some ADUs. So there was some back and forth to give municipalities a little bit more autonomy in how they handle them, the size, things like that. But I don't know all the details. This is the fourth substitute, so got a little back and forth. There's been a lot of negotiation on that one, but it does look like it's moving forward at this point.
And the league has supported the substitutes, which
They've gone neutral on the substitute.
so totally neutral.
So it wasn't opposed.
Okay.
And then as they negotiated with the sponsors to try and get some of those allowances for municipalities to have more autonomy, they agreed to go neutral.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The next one was also heard today, and that's HB 98, which is Local Government Building Regulation Amendments. And it was heard today in the Senate Government Operations and Political Subdivisions. I don't know what that vote was. I know they voted on it, but it was at the exact same time as the ADU bill, and the minutes aren't out yet, so if anybody knows. But that is the one where construction can opt out of independent inspections and hire their own third-party inspector for building inspections. And that was opposed by the league.
Right.
But I'm going to look up the minutes first thing in the morning. I was frustrated. The next one is Senate Bill 61. This is the outdoor advertising amendment. So there were two billboard bills this year, and both of them seem to be dead right now. Both of them seem to be gone. This one, Sandal killed it himself. He had a table to circled, and then he brought it back and took it out for this session. So that one's gone. So it seems like we may get through the session without any billboard bills
that'd be
being
nice.
passed. But I don't
Until next year.
keep doing that. Then we've got, let's see, HB 96, Emergency Management Amendments, the ULCT supported. This one's about appointing an emergency manager and creating emergency operation plans. So just some state disaster recovery planning with some funds for that. Let's see. I'm going to hop down to, let's see, Senate Bill 13, Law Enforcement Internal Investigations. This bill, the ULCT supported. It requires that an employing agency notify the Peace Officer Standards and Training Division if a peace officer separates from the agency while an investigation is in progress. An investigation must be turned over to the division in certain circumstances. So some transparency there. Let's see. All right. Let's jump down to trying to see which ones have more of an impact here. SB 65 at the bottom of the page is Community Reinvestment Agency Amendments. The league didn't have a position on this one, but it enables agencies to levy a property tax on property within the agency's boundaries and restricts the agency from widening the scope of some project plans and project budgets, and the agency can use the property tax revenue for agency projects. And sorry, the league did switch to support this one. That one started neutral and they are supporting it now. So that was a change. We'll just do a few more of these. Let's see. This is one that the ULCT opposed, and that is HB 66, the Sheriff's Amendment. This one would give the sheriff authority over local police departments if they disagreed on enforcement during a riot or civil disturbance or breach of peace. And again, that was an opposed for ULCT. It is currently within House Rules Committee, so it hasn't moved very far yet. And let's see, we have a lot of neutral ones that won't do a whole lot. One that will impact our any like home occupancy businesses is HB 94, and that's the Micro Enterprise Home Kitchen Amendments. ULCT was neutral on it. I just thought this one was interesting, and that as people are home and doing side businesses and hustles and things like that, this would be the Department of Health will have administrative rulemaking authority over sanitation equipment maintenance and permits. So this would impact people like selling cakes out of their house or those kind of small businesses. Let's see, and let's see. I think those are the big ones that are moving. There's a lot of bills that have language that haven't gone anywhere yet. There's a lot of bills that are just being watched right now. Jill, were there any that you thought worth mentioning that I skipped? Or?
I think one that was fairly significant was the sales tax distribution. As of Monday, the league believes that's dead this year. So that was pretty significant if that's the case.
Yes, excellent. And just hoping that it stays dead because sometimes they pop back up. But yeah, thank you. Absolutely a big one.
Just one more day when they can pop back up. So.
Right. And then they just have to.
Can they pop, Kat, can they pop back? I mean, I know tomorrow's the deadline, but if they're already out there and they're in committee, can they still bring them forward?
There's a lot of bills that haven't ever been put on an agenda even.
Right.
So that's sort of where it's hard to know whether they don't feel like there's an appetite to get them through or leadership's not interested, or if they're just going to wait.
I was just going to ask
rush them through in the last minute.
Okay, that's my question.
And it's hard to know depending on the bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bill, you know about that.
But so that's what I've got for LPC today, but we'll have a more comprehensive and clear update next time. I feel like there's a lot of everything's happening very fast and at the same time, but we're
how many bills, remind me, does anybody know how many bills are out there? Oh, can you believe that? 900. Cat reports on a few and there's 900. That's crazy, huh?
945 days.
Oh.
That's
And
a
how
slow
many
year,
that
bro.
affect
Oh,
Murray?
did you hear, Dale? That's a slow year. Wow.
It is a slow year. And how many that are affecting Murray? That could affect Murray.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. I was just looking at the ULCT tracking their spreadsheet today, and it is like 3 pages of the smallest font spreadsheet you've ever seen. And there's only maybe a dozen or two that are, they have them labeled of like red, orange, yellow, as far as like how fast they're moving or concerned they are about it. And there's maybe only a dozen that are red. But it is just hoping that you're watching the right ones as, they're moving through. But I'm really grateful for all the work that the ULCT is doing and the advocacy. I listened to Cameron testify at a couple committee hearings today while I was listening in. So they're doing a really good job for us.
Cameron's awesome.
Cameron, I was just going to say, Cameron's pretty savvy on that. And he's fun to watch, isn't he? He has quite the background in that area. So
He's awesome. Okay. So I guess we will be adjourned till 6:30.